So I'm back. This is part 3. So yeah, I was saying I actually take time to eat God's word, to meditate, to study, and to chew on his word. And I encourage you guys to eat God's word as well. This is called faith and food. This is called faith and food. So I encourage you guys to eat God's word, just like we eat our natural food. So I will be sharing what I'm going to be having for dinner shortly, but I wanted to make sure that I shared what I ate in God's word, because we have to make sure the same way we're feeding our natural men, feeding our spiritual men as well. It's important that we have that balanced diet in the spiritual and in the natural. So my question is for you, are you eating God's word? Are you eating God's word? And if not, what are you eating? What are you eating? We need to eat God's word daily. God's word is life. And I just thank God for just giving me a hunger and thirst for his word. Because I remember some years ago when I barely picked up my Bible. When I literally just let my Bible, so I didn't have this. This is a new Bible that I just got at December at the end of last year. But the Bible that the other Bible I have, I remember when it used to just sit and I would barely pick it up. And to be honest, I didn't even really have a desire. I didn't really care. It wasn't interesting. I was praying and worshiping, but I was barely getting into God's word, other than going to church on Sunday and hearing a sermon at church and going to Bible study. And that's not enough. That's not enough. Us going to church on Sunday and Bible study on Tuesday or Wednesday, that's not enough. We have to make sure that we are setting time aside to study God's word, to eat God's word for ourselves. It is very important that we eat God's word, just like we eat breakfast, lunch, and dinner, just like we eat every day, just like we eat our natural food daily. We want to make sure that we're in God's word daily. So if you're struggling with eating God's word, I encourage you to pray and just ask God to give you that hunger and that thirst for God's word. And if you have a hunger and thirst for his word, and maybe you're just not consistent in God's word, you're in his word, but you're only in it once a month, or you're only in it once a week, so you're not consistent. So I just encourage you to ask and pray. If this is you, to pray and ask God to increase your hunger and your thirst for his word like never before, to help you be consistent in his word, to not miss a day. Not saying if you miss a day, don't beat yourself up. Life happens, things happen. But we want to make sure that we have that desire to study God's word daily. Even if that just means 30 minutes a day. We just want to make sure that we are taking time to eat God's word every single day, just like we take time to eat our natural food, like we take time to do other things. We want to make sure that we are making time to spend time with God through his word.